It's Sunday, so I'm back teaching on Sophia Isus. I got up to 4 last week, so I was gonna finish off by talking about the end of 4. He says, "For by speech will wisdom be known, and education through a word of tongue. Do not speak against the truth, and concerning your lack of education, you should feel shame." So I'm pretty serious about education, and I haven't gotten to the point that I feel shame about my education yet because I have a master's degree, but I got my bachelor's degree when I was 10. So I know that I have a 5th grade education in the amount of time that I've done school. And I think that it doesn't show usually ever, I think that education can show. And I think that anyone that's pretty serious about education knows for a fact that they don't know a lot of things. And there's nothing like studying business in grad school that will kick someone like me in the nuts and make me go, I don't know everything I think I know. Because the more you get educated, the more you know. And I could study engineering and then, of course I don't know anything. I'm studying engineering. I could go to study for med school. Well, of course I don't know this stuff. But when you study business and you're learning things, I think that can kind of give you a reality check. And I think that knowledge of information makes a difference in the way that you interact with the world. It makes it so that you can be wise. Because what did Ali say about justice? He said that justice has a penetrating knowledge of the situation. A just judge can fully grasp what they're judging. And that's why when I think I've got to go replace the Supreme Court, I have to replace these important federal appeals judges. I don't know exactly what to do about it because I've got to find someone with a penetrating knowledge of that much stuff. Plus they have to know law stuff. They have to. They need to be able to at least, you don't have to necessarily be a lawyer to be a federal judge, but you need to have a staff of lawyers and you have to have a very penetrating knowledge of the law. But it would be nice to be a lawyer. But we have to pick different types of judges, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do about that. I do realize that you can't just say the Supreme Court's gone unless the Supreme Court commits treason, and we're in a massive treason situation where the media is so censored, where what they're hiding is it's so offensive. I've been talking about having shame about lack of education or lack of knowledge. And I think that there are some people that have such a deep shame when they don't know something or when they look stupid that they can't function in an education environment. They're the person that can't raise their hand if they are not 100% sure about the answer. They're a person that's afraid to speak up in class. And I think that humbling, not being afraid of being wrong is the reason I got to the point that I'm at with computers, where I'm actually pretty impressive. But then still I have that shame sometimes when I say a half a basis point is a half percentage when it's 50 basis points. And I go, oh gosh, I just ruined my entire video. But my video was good. I would never read 50 basis points and think, oh yeah, that's 50%. I know what 50 basis points is, but I still don't know. And I think the reality is that I have a neural interface in my head, and probably you do too. And if you control that neural interface, you can make an AI constantly try to make someone embarrassed. It's I noticed it when I was in jail. The moment I speak up about Shauna Ray, everyone wants to fight me and I'm in danger. They want to, I knew that there was a neural interface in these other people's heads. And that I was going, the mafia really does not want me talking about Shauna Ray in Pueblo's jail. I knew they really didn't want me getting the word out about my Snapchat and stuff like that. Clearly the police send a SWAT team after me for trying to tell my neighbors about my Snapchat. You want to talk about a crazy situation. I'm terrified to talk to people, and I know that I need to get over that. And I think it's important to be brave in your speech. And like I talked about it before, like you can be wise and quiet. That's easy. But in some situations, like true wisdom is knowing when to speak to someone you don't even know about the situation, because you know that the sex traffickers don't want you to talk to people. You know that the sex traffickers aren't everyone. They need you in a censorship bubble. They're that important on the internet. And if you're in real life, you need to talk to people about the situation. And so, yeah, I think that like you will never believe how much time matters in the wisdom that you acquire. Like this says, do not disdain a person in his old age, for some of us too are growing old. Like my mom sucks that bad at the computer, and like my dad sucked that bad at the computer when he was an old man. Like my other dad was good at computers. The dad they replaced my dad with sucked at computers, but he had wisdom, like he had knowledge. Here, Izu says, do not winnow in every wind and do not go on every shortcut. Thus is the double-tongued sinner. So like when he's saying that, like he's saying like, do not waver that much in like what you say. Like there are people that like constantly change their opinion. Like I talked about Pilgrim's Progress recently. There's this character called Pliable, and then there's the character called Obstinate. Obstinate won't change his opinion ever. And Pliable is like immediately like, okay, I agree with you. Like Obstinate doesn't care if there's no periods in the Bible. Well, clearly there are colons. Like that's the type of punctuation they used in the Bible. That was a long time ago. Pliable goes, well, of course the periods are wrong. Like, of course it's theta. Like he knows for fact it's theta. But no, it's not theta. Like, I mean, and so, but generally like people tend to be obstinate. And, so like, do you want to be too obstinate? Do you want to be too pliable? Clearly you don't. Like you have to have like a root in certain knowledge you have. Like I know this, like there are things you do know. But then like you can still accept new information. There are no periods in the freaking Bible? How they write? There's no language that can do no periods. They just have colons that are also, semicolons that are also commas. And they're using these words in such weird ways. Like, what's up with that? Is what a person that's normal would think, and I think that like I don't know how to deal with a society where like I can't figure out why, like I can't figure out why you're like that, like I can't figure out like what makes you so obstinate, like how are you that obstinate? Like what makes you so like impossible to talk to? Like what makes this situation so crazy? I think it's hard to figure out, but let's see what Ali says about this topic. He says, the tongue of the one who has intellect follows his heart, and the heart of the one who is foolish follows his tongue. That's not necessarily the exact same topic, but it's the way that people are. Like this is what I teach every Sunday. This is my congregation. My congregation knows I know Greek. They know I'm the Greek guy. I always talk about Greek words at church. They know I actually understand it. And like, I think that like, you will never convince me that you actually understand it unless you're like a hardcore Greek scholar. Because like if there's anything that exists is righteousness. And this guy's still translating it as righteousness. And you're telling me that dikaiosune is freaking righteousness when it's justice? Like what in the hell? Like, dikaia, like I can't remember what unrighteous is. But like, it's crazy to me. And so like, you have to be worried about following your tongue too much, because like what do Islamic teachers teach on? Hijab. Like what, today's sermon's on. I feel like a lot of people don't know that Islamic teachers teach on hijabs that much, which is the headscarf. And like, I think that Christians teach on it too. Women, you gotta be pure. Like, you gotta have a pure heart. Like, you need to be pure in your sex. Like, and they don't get why there are religions like that. And it has to do with the order of Melchizedek having breeding rules where like women literally had to like wipe their vaginas with and show a rabbi, or he wasn't a rabbi back then, because they didn't use that word back then. Show them whether or not they're on their period. Like that's how far the breeding rules went. And like clearly that's a religion that's trying to make sure that people don't inbreed, because like they're tracking their bloodlines that much. And like I've been talking about how like it's important to have a good friend. I don't think I even got to that section yet, but like Izus talked about it, and like and have it talked about having a friend that you can trust. And the reality is, like, having an uneducated female population makes it a lot harder to trust your wife, because she doesn't have a penetrating knowledge of the situation, which it gives her a sense of justice. And a lot of people can't handle new information because they don't have a penetrating knowledge of very many things. And so when I start talking about what a good judge is, and like how like Ali believed in like that his favorite thing was creating justice in this unjust society. And like, and he's someone that like is different than me. And so is Izus, the writer of Sophia Izus. Like, that guy is different than me. He lived in a very different society. Like, that guy's about to talk about like beating your slaves. And like, he says, like, you generally don't want to, he says, don't beat a slave for no reason. If there's a reason, then you can beat him. And so like, what I'm saying is like, that's a different person than me. That's a different culture. But like, that culture has led to such an unjust society, and that unjust society makes it so that like some of these people's friends, their best friend is their wife. They need a good friend. They need someone that will stand by them that much. They're not wise. They don't sharpen you. Like we say in Christianity, as iron sharpens iron, so a good friend sharpens another friend. Your woman, your wife, she can help you. But if we oppress women, if we dehumanize women, if we like are following our tongue so much, then we're not going to have a very just society, because such a huge percentage of our society is not going to have a deep penetrating knowledge of whatever they're doing or talking about. So here Izus talks about like having friends and like acquiring a friend through testing, and like having a long-term friendship with someone and like knowing them because they're there for you like long-term. And like he talks about how important it is to have like a sturdy shelter in a friend. But he also talks about like you shouldn't just assume someone's your friend because and Izus goes so far as to say like, if you have a good friend, don't sell them into slavery. Oh, thanks, Izus. That's a good role. I appreciate you giving us proverbs on it. Why don't you put it in the freaking law? It is in the law. You can't sell Hebrew people into slavery. Yeah. But like, it all, like he goes on to say, do not abuse a domestic, blah, 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 worker. Oh my gosh, I can't read it because my finger's over it. You can read it. You're reading it now. So he says, like, if you have an intelligent slave, then like do not deprive him of his liberty. Like let him be free. So like this is further support for like why people don't want me reading the Septuagint. Like why, like did the feds show up to my house the moment this book came in the mail? And they know that I'm going to read Sophia Izus, and it's called Sirach. It's Ecclesiasticus. We like Alex might notice that it's Sirach and it's Ecclesiasticus. Oh my gosh, the church is so afraid of that book. It's my favorite book now. That's the way I am, because tell me they're afraid of it. And it's because of the slavery stuff. So like, feel free to beat your slaves if they're not doing their job. It's just, and so like that's a different. That's not me. Like, I mean, but what are you going to do with your slave? Like, I mean, I don't know exactly how you handle like your very difficult slave. Like, I think you had to punish slaves back then. Like, I guess you like cut off their food probably. Like, I think that's kind of like, it's jail. Like, I won't feed you unless you work. Yeah. I'm going to go up to the top of chapter 6 of Sophia Izus. And we can kind of finish up from there. So he says, do not become an enemy instead of a friend, for a bad name will inherit shame and reproach. This is the double-tongued sinner. And then let's go down to here. He says, a sweet throat will multiply in friends, and a well-speaking tongue will multiply courtesies. Let those who are at peace with you be many, and let your advisors be 1 in 1,000. So do you guys know that person that like will create enemies everywhere? If you don't, you haven't been to jail. Go spend a couple weeks in jail you'll know the guy. Like spend 6 months in jail, you'll know like 50 of them, and those people are your enemies. Like the way they interact with the world is the way they are, which is they want to fight it. They don't like you. They have a problem with you. And like he says, like a sweet like he's talking about like a sweet throat, like which what like normal Christians would say is like a gentle answer turns away wrath. Like you can always talk like that, yeah, man, yeah, or you can talk like this. And and the reality is like the tone of your voice is affects the situation that much, and like it affects the way that people treat you, and it affects the way that you interact with the world. And like I don't think that most of us want to create a world where we have that many enemies. Like we want people to be our friends, and part of creating a world where people are our friends is like being trustworthy, because like you don't realize that people are testing you. Like people will decide on you. Like you're not a trustworthy person. You're not a good person. You're not someone that like that they want to have around. Like you're someone that will lie. You're someone that will steal. You're someone that like you can't trust what they're saying. And like you want to be someone that people respect, that people trust, because there are people like me that have their eyes open constantly for a trustworthy person, for a good person, for someone that like we might use in a certain situation, and we might be looking for certain characteristics. And so like the last person we're going to ever use is the guy that like was our enemy ever for some random reason. Like, because no, that means that they're other people's enemies. And so like the way you interact with the world creates your world. Because like I always say that like, what is reality? Reality is how we perceive reality. And the way we perceive reality might actually be reality, which like everyone might hate us, and it's because of the way we behave. That can become our reality. It's not just like, no, that's our perception, everyone hates you. No, everyone does hate you because of the way